Hey guys, just bringing you a crafting video today on how to make the new Tailwind elusive boots. These boots became available in 3.9 with the introduction of the new influence mods as well as the Awakener orb. Now, how you can roll these type of boots is you can get Tailwind on Hunter influenced items and you can get elusive on Redeemer influenced items. You can use an Awakener orb to combine these two mods onto a single item and it gives you a very solid pair of boots. Now, when you're crafting these boots, you ideally want to use a two-tone base, as they are best in the slot for most builds. There are a bunch of ways you can craft this boot. At the moment, a pair of these boots sells for roughly 3 to 4x. Now, this is a lot cheaper than earlier in the league. These were going for like 10, 15, 20x, depending on what the rolls you were getting. But people begin to figure out how to craft these things a little bit better, so the price is going down now. So I'm going to just quickly show you how to craft these today and also talk about what ways you can craft them and the most cost-effective way of crafting them. It might actually just be more cost-effective just to buy a pair if you want a pair, because crafting it, from what I'm looking at right now, seems to be a lot more expensive than it is to actually buy them. So here are the options you can if you want to craft these type of boots. You could start with buying a eye level 75 two-toned. Why eye level 75? You need to have a certain item level in order to roll elusive or tailwind. So 75 seems to be the threshold for these type of boots and these type of rolls. So you buy a eye level 75 two-toned. You can slam it with a Hunter's Exalted Orb, making the boot now Hunter influenced. You can scour it and it'll still be Hunter influenced. A lot of people think that if you scour off the Exalted Slam, that becomes a regular boot again. That's not true. It still stays Hunter influenced. After ult spamming Tailwind onto your boot, you can now have the option to either purchase a boot with elusive already rolled on it, or try roll elusive yourself on a Redeemer influenced boot. In this example, let's just say we're going to purchase a boot with elusive. These boots sell for around 75 to 80, 90 C. You may notice that these boots, they aren't two-tones. Now, the reason why this doesn't matter is because the base that we're going to be transferring the mod onto is already a two-tone boot. So only the base that you want to keep has to be two-toned. So we're just taking this mod and pulling it on to the base. Your other option is just vice versa. You can buy a two-tone boot and then slam it with a Redeemer's Orb. And then you can ult spam until you get elusive, and then you can purchase any boot with the Tailwind mod, and then Awakener Orb it together. Now, both of these methods are very expensive now compared to how much the boot itself costs. If we want to look at the prices for a Redeemer's Orb, it's 165C. A price for Hunter's Exalted Orb, 320C. Exalts are around 120 at the time of recording, so these are like 2 and a bit X, 2.5X, and this is about 1 and a bit X. Probably 2X because of the price fixes. So they're around 2X each, so that's the slam onto influence onto the boot, while the finished product only costs 3x itself. If you want to buy a pair of these boots, or if you want to own a pair of these boots, it's probably best just to buy them outright right now, because they're much cheaper than crafting it yourself. The only reason you want to craft it, or the reason why I'm crafting it, is because you can go for a much better roll, or aim for like a very fat pair of boots. But that's entirely up to luck, and there's a very high chance that you end up with boots just like these, or if not worse than these boots here. I'll also mention another method you could craft using these things, but this is the least efficient method. You would buy a two-tone boots with Tailwind or elusive already on it, so it's already a influenced two-tone, making it pretty expensive, and you also want the mod on it, making it even more expensive. Then you buy any other boot, doesn't have to be two-toned, with Tailwind and elusive, then you awaken or orbit together to make a pair. This is probably the least effective method in terms of crafting. I would not suggest doing this unless you have a massive amount of currency and you don't want to roll it yourself, or you just don't have time to make it. If you want to save time, you could do this method, but otherwise I would strongly not suggest doing this method. So for today, the method I'm going to do, most likely, since I know about the price of the two-tone boots now with both elusive and Tailwind, I think the most effective way of doing it is buying a Redeemer two-tone base without the mod and rolling the elusive part myself. And then I'm gonna buy any random boot with Tailwind and then Redeemer Orbit together. That's still gonna be most likely more expensive than just buying the boot outright, but it gives me a chance to get a much better boot than what's available on the market. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna buy a two-tone base that's Redeemer influenced. So let's see any of these people here, and make sure the item level for the boot is more than 75. Otherwise, you cannot roll the mod. Yep, so eye level 78, 1 influence, Redeemer boots. Yes, thank you. Alright, so now I have the base that I'm going to be transferring over to. All I need now is to get a Tailwind boot. It doesn't have to be two-tone, it can just be any boot with Tailwind. And I have to alt spam this one until I get Elusive. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to scour it. See how after I scour it, it's still a Redeemer base. A lot of people think that by scouring these items, you lose the influence. That's not true. You still keep the influence. So I'm going to start alt spamming. The quick way of doing this is you go into your search bar here, and since you're looking for a specific mod, you just type in Elusive, and this won't this will be grayed out until the mod shows up, so it makes it a lot easier to see when you want the mod. So I'm going to just start rolling for the mod now. Alright, so we just rolled Elusive on the boots, and we also rolled Lightning Resistance as well. That's actually a good thing because we don't really care about the other mod on the boot itself as long as it's not a Redeemer mod. If the prefix and the suffix are both Redeemer mods, when you awaken or orb the item, it has a 50-50 chance of picking either one of the influence mods. So you want to make sure that there's only one influence mod when you're awakening orbit across to another item. So in this case, Lightning Resistance is not a Redeemer mod or a influence mod, so it will only take Elusive when we awaken an orbit. Now that we have these boots, I'm going to purchase a pair of Tailwind boots that are not a two-tone, just as long as it has Tailwind, and I can just awaken an orbit together. Well, it seems that no one wants to sell their Tailwind boot, so this might be a good opportunity for me just to buy a Hunter base and then show you guys how to roll it yourself. So for the search, if you want to search for these type of boots, you just go item category boots, and then you put in Hunter influence, and then you put an eye level of 75, and then you search for it, and there should be a bunch of results. 5C, so very, very cheap to buy. Doesn't matter what mod's on this because we're going to scour it and roll it ourselves, so let's just buy these pair of boots. Alright, so now we have our Hunter base boots. It is item level 84. It's a random base, doesn't have to be two-toned, as only the base we're transferring to has to be two-toned. So what we're going to do now is we're going to scour these boots, and then we're going to roll for Tailwind now. So same as before, you put in Tailwind at the bottom, and then you can just start alt spamming until you get Tailwind. Alright, so we've now just rolled Tailwind, and we've also rolled Life with it. Life is not a influenced mod like before, so it won't be affected when we transfer it across, so it's a guaranteed chance that we get Tailwind. Normally, when you want to roll these boots, you want to make sure that you have at least a couple hundred alterations, maybe more. Generally, I like to have between 1 to 2,000 alterations before I try crafting these things in case I get unlucky. In this case, I've gotten quite lucky with the Tailwind mod. I got it within maybe 100 alterations. So now I have both boot bases ready. So I have Tailwind on this pair of boots, and I have Elusive on this pair of boots. So all I need to do now is buy an Awakening Orb, and I can combine the influences and the mods together. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use an Awakener's Orb on our first pair of boots, which will pull the influence of Tailwind across, destroying the boot, and it will give us the Tailwind mod on our second boot with Elusive already. So let's see what we get. Alright, so now you can see we have both the mods on the boot, and it seems like we've rolled tier 7 life, a little bit unlucky. We do have 2 suffix slots available to craft, so we can craft and reses on that. And that's pretty much how you make Elusive Tailwind boots.